Customizing headers and footers. Headers and footers are sections of the form placed at the top and bottom of the body. They're not scrollable. They're actually fixed or locked in place so that they're always visible to an end user. You cannot remove them from the form, and end users cannot modify items that are in them. Headers and footers are sort of like a section in that they support 1 through 4 columns, and they also can contain attributes from the form's entity, web resources, spacers, and iframes. So here's an example of what headers and footers look like within the form as viewed by a user. As you can see at the top, the header contains the icon as well as the name of the entity type that we're looking at, and then in this particular instance has been customized to show the case ID. At the bottom, the footer is showing the status. So let's take a look at how that looks when we're customizing. So here's an example of the same form with the header configured to support 3 columns and the footer with the status. Now let's view this live. Here we are in the distributor form again. As you can see, we have the header and footer displayed on the screen. Now, in order to edit the header, I must either double-click it, which will now activate it and move the bar. In the ribbon, I can click on footer to go to the footer. But let's customize the header as it has nothing in it as of this particular point in time. So first of all, what I'd like to do is take a look at the configuration of the header. As you can see, I have the ability to do formatting to select the number of columns that I want, as well as field label alignment, just like I would in a section. There are some more limitations here, however. I'm going to go ahead and leave this in 3 columns because what I'd like to do is to drag and drop a field that's going to take up 2 columns. So I'm going to go ahead and put the name in column 2, and then I'm going to double click it and do some formatting on it to extend it to 2 columns. As you can see, it's now taking up both sides. I'm going to go back in and make another change in that I do not want to display the label because it should be self-evident. And then finally, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put owner of the record in the first column. So that is customizing the header. The footer works almost exactly the same way. As you can see, they're both locked on the form and cannot be removed, but I can go in and make changes. For instance, I can alter the number of columns displayed to 4, which now compress the status down. I want to give the status a little bit more room, so I'm going to suggest that it should take 2 columns, and this gives me 2 more columns that I can play with in the footer. And if I do a save and a preview, I'm able to see the form. Now mind you, it's not a very well designed form, but then again, I was only trying to show you how we would be able to organize the different components on the form. This allows me to simulate a form save, which allows me during testing to trigger an on-save event. And these forms are actually live to the point where I can do my testing in this particular mode. So do keep in mind that you have the ability to use the preview to accomplish this. Customizing navigation on a form. The navigation pane of a form provides access to the related entities and include links to non-CRM applications as well. We can alter the look and functionality of default navigation to rearrange related entity links, rename the related entity links and navigation group names, remove related entity links, and to add navigation links to web resources or external URLs. The navigation pane is on the left-hand side. Here's an example of it from within the customization user interface. And now we're back to our distributor example. So first what we want to do to modify the navigation pane is to select navigation. As you can see, the area has become highlighted. Now I do have the ability within the navigation just to quickly drag and drop and reorder things around. That's a pretty straightforward process. But I also can come and choose to eliminate completely and rename sections should I so choose. So marketing, renamed. Also, I can add new items. So I could go through available relationships and choose either one-to-N or end-to-end relationships from the list and simply drag and drop them wherever I would like them to be. But in addition to that, I can also insert some additional pieces. Now, if you'll notice, all of the other items except for navigation link are grayed out. But I can create a navigation link at any time that I like. So we'll create a test link. And we could also associate an icon with this. This would be looking up from our web resources and specifically looking at icons. And I can also link this to a web resource. But since I don't have any in this example, I'm going to choose to create an external URL. And so that has created a test link at the bottom of the navigation pane. Now, also notice that I can create new relationships from within the interface, much in the same way that I can create new attributes. So this is a great way when I realize that I need something else on the form to create a relationship that will allow it to be in the Relationship Explorer and thus put me into a position where I can utilize that within the navigation pane. Testing your customizations of the form is relatively straightforward. The preview button on the form allows you to simulate the form without actually publishing the customizations. This allows you to test your modifications, especially such things as event processing, to make sure that everything is correct before you expose them to the users. Feel free to check this out. It's a very powerful way of making sure that you've delivered what you meant to deliver and can do thorough testing before anyone else can see your changes. Role-based forms. When a new entity is created, a main form and a mobile form are automatically created at the same time. However, additional forms can be created as necessary. You can also add new forms to existing system entities. Multiple forms are referred to as role-based forms. The idea is to allow different forms to be designed for different job functions. This simplifies the user interface for different job roles. The form displayed to a user depends upon the security roles assigned to that form and the user, and also the form order of the form itself within the entity. And then finally, if they're using a mobile device, they'd see a mobile form, and if they're not using a mobile device, they would see a main form. Role-based forms demonstration. So let's take a look at how role-based forms work. Now basically, if you only have one form, then all users should be able to see that form if they're allowed to see the entity. On the other hand, if we want to create a custom form for a manager to look at and want the manager to be the only person that can see that form, then what we need to do is to select the form and assign security roles. So first of all, we're not going to display this to everyone. We're going to display it only to these selected security roles. And since this is a case form, what we're interested in doing is showing this only to the CSR manager. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's automatically selected for the system customizer and the system administrator, but in this case I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that this form is only displayed to someone who has the security role of CSR manager. So that's what I've done here. Because the information form is set up for all users to access and it's enabled for fallback, I now want to affect the order of the forms so that it doesn't end up showing the manager this form first. We handle this by doing the form order. So I'm going to address the main form set, and if you'll notice, the manager form is before the information form. This takes care of a circumstance where an individual can see more than one form. So what happens is that the manager form will not be available to anyone but the manager could also see the information form. Since we want him to default to the manager form and not the information form, we want the manager form to be first in the list. So in this particular case, with the configuration that we have in place, that when the manager goes and looks at a case, he will see the manager form and not the information form. All other users of the system will go straight to the information